Hello, this is Gary at Jack Raver Bushcraft, and thank you for watching our video. So we're up at our woodland camp today just to have a little look around, basically make sure that everything's okay. While we're here, I just thought we'd take a little wander around the wood really, and just do a few little clips here and there of stuff that's going on. It is a fantastic time to be in the woods after all, and we understand that many of you aren't able to share that experience, so we thought that at least we could try to make it available to you digitally. You can see these logs laid down here, and in fact if you look right the way down the ride, this is where our landowner has been opening out the rides. So this is all ash around here. Much of it in fact does have dieback anyway, but the purpose of opening out the ride, what we're trying to accomplish, or what our landowner is trying to accomplish, is a layering system. So a layering system, think of it as being kind of like this, like a V shape. So at the sort of tops of those V's we have our tall mature trees. As we come down we get sort of a shrub layer, and then right down at almost at the bottom of that V shape we get all our ground flora. And so, yeah, opening out, it allows the light to get in essentially, and encourages lots of new growth. Hasn't been done in this woodland for many years, and so whilst it might look a little bit brutal at the moment, come back in a couple of years and you'll and we'll be able to really see the effect of it. Those of you that have been to our camp, you'll know that this particular ride, this track, there are places where it really narrows in. So the idea now is, we're starting to get it opened out, is to sort of keep it that way. So yeah, I'm just going to take a little wander through the woods. If I see something that I think might be of interest, we'll stop and point it out. I'm stood now in amongst Dog's Mercury. Now, I spoke about this previously because it's a plant that you can often find growing in amongst the ramsons of wild garlic. So take a look at that one just to see what I had to say in it. I really like this plant. It's I think underrated to a large extent. If you look behind me now, the whole of the woodland floor is just covered in Dog's Mercury, and it's just such a vibrant green at this time of year. So it's an ancient woodland indicator, so it's given us a big clue that we're in an ancient woodland at the moment. It is a toxic plant, however, as I've mentioned previously. There are cases of people ingesting this. It gives you a very bad stomach. In fact, there are no cases in modern history of people having died from eating it, but it can give you a very nasty stomach upset. It can also turn your urine red. There are a couple of recorded incidents in Germany where cattle have eaten Dog's Mercury. Most bizarrely, it has turned their milk blue. Now I have to say my chemistry isn't at a level where I can explain why that would happen. One of the things that I particularly like about Dog's Mercury, there's a little insect lives on it called the Dog's Mercury flea beetle. It's a couple of millimeters long, and it has an iridescent shell on it, so a bit like oil floating on water. So it's a beetle, not a flea, but it does have sort of very long legs on it, and so if you disturb them when they're feeding, they will leap, and it's quite a spectacular leap for something that's so tiny. So I will have a little look, see if I can find one crawling about, and try to get a little clip of it. So here we have wooden enemies. These are really beautiful little flowers. They kind of sit there like this, and they follow the sun across the sky. So you can watch the flower as the sun moves, and they just sort of turn on that stem. So I don't know of any edible or medicinal uses for these. They are an ancient woodland indicator, another ancient woodland indicator species. So I mentioned the same thing with the dog's mercury. So what is it that makes them an ancient woodland indicator? It's to do with how long it takes them to spread. So a friend of mine who works for Natural England, I was talking to him sort of this time last year, and he was telling me that that woodland anemones, it can take them up to 100 years, a century, to spread a distance of about 1 metre. So if you've got a woodland that it's completely covered in woodland anemone, because of that rate of spread, you know that it's been there for a very, very long time indeed. So that's what makes these useful for us in trying to determine the age of a woodland. As I say, this is one of my absolute favourite flowers, I think, woodland anemone. They are such a beautiful little thing. Just staying on the same sort of subject of woodland flowers, these are flowering now. The bluebells, I'm sure we'll pass some of those in a minute, but they're all starting to come out now. They come out now because they have to basically flower before the trees come into leaf. So once all of these trees around us come into leaf, what that's going to do is basically cut off the supply of sunlight to the woodland floor. So the flowers themselves have to kind of grab their opportunity now, before the trees come into leaf and cut off all of that light. Right in front of me here, this is an early purple orchid, another one here. This is one of my absolute favourite parts of the woodland, actually. It's the only place that I've found in here so far where we get bluebells, woodland anemones and early purple orchids all growing in the same place. Give it another couple of weeks when we got more of the bluebells out, and more of the orchids as well, in fact. This little patch all around here, it's just absolutely stunning. There are not really words to do it justice. I will try to get back in a few weeks, in fact, to take some more footage of it so that you're able to see what it is I'm very badly trying to articulate. Earlier I said that woodland flowers have to do their thing. They have to flower before the actual trees come into leaf. Some of the trees, however, are now starting to do that. So next to me here, this is hazel. The hazel in this particular area, and some of you may remember this because some of you very kindly volunteered to help us out. We coppiced this 2 years ago, I think. Now it might have been 3 actually. So but 2 or 3 years ago we coppiced all of this lot, and you can see it is starting to leaf. Hazel is often one of the earlier ones that come into leaf in my experience. I tend to think of it of the H's, in fact. So hazel, there's a hawthorn just here, it's another one that's starting to come into leaf now. Hornbeam, that's another that's starting to leaf early, and then elder, really, it's another one that also tends to leaf very early. So back to the hazel. As I said, we coppiced this a couple of years back. So coppicing comes from the French word couper, to cut. So if you look on a map and you see something described as a cop or a copse, those kind of terms, it almost certainly means that at some point in the past it was a woodland that was coppiced. And what we do with coppicing is take advantage of a tree's natural ability to regrow. I mean, trees are just hardy. They take an awful lot of killing in many respects. So it's a defense mechanism against grazing or being blown over or struck by lightning, that kind of thing. So the tree's basically able to regenerate. And so with coppicing we take advantage of that. So we cut something down at ground level, and then what we get is lots of new stems coming up in its place. So traditionally with hazel, it's been done on a 7-year cycle. So you would divide a woodland up into 7 compartments, and in year 1 you cut down compartment 1, and in year 2 you cut down compartment 2, and year 3 compartment 3, and so on until you get back to year 8, and then you're in compartment 1 again, and you're going to cut everything back down to the ground level. Depending on the species, that sort of cycle will vary as well. So something like sweet chestnut, you're probably looking at something between 18 to 24 years, whereas hazel, typically 7. It's an incredibly useful resource for us in bushcraft, the woodsman's friend, the bushcrafter's friend. You know, we could be using this for to make a bow for bow drilling. It could be the spindles for bow drilling. It could be a bow for shooting arrows, so just a very simple stick bow. We can use it for our pot hangers. We can use it for withies. So a really, really versatile and useful tree, shrub for us. You can see in this area lots of trees kind of leaning at an angle, so to the side there and behind me. So as I mentioned earlier, ash dieback. So these are all ash trees. We've taken a fairly substantial hit in the woodland actually with dieback. It's very sad. Ultimately there isn't anything we're able to do about it, but nature really does gotta give as much as it will take. So here, all of these are wild cherry saplings, and there are dozens of them, and probably, I don't know, more, sorry, dozens and dozens, maybe 100 or so of them in this area alone, and they weren't there 2 years ago. So as this sort of the ash is dying off and they're basically opening up the canopy, all of these cherry seeds that have been laid in the ground have taken their opportunity, and up they go, like billio. I mean, they are really growing quickly. What is also at least partially encouraging in this area, and I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see because these are only very tiny still, these are all ash saplings, and sort of all the way up around this area there are ash saplings, and again there are dozens and dozens and dozens of them. Again, you know, too many to count really. I don't know what their future is likely to be. So I don't know whether once we've lost all of these ash, that means that these won't be able to get infected afterwards. I guess time will tell. But nonetheless, it is still encouraging to be able to see all of these ash saplings growing through, and yeah, as I say, really encouraging as well to see that all of these wild cherry are starting to take up this particular area. Here behind me, these are mature-ish wild cherry. Really easy to identify from ground level. We've got these very distinct horizontal markings on it, so that tells us from quite some distance that this is going to be a cherry. It's a beautiful wood to carve. So if those of us of a certain age that might remember fruit salad sweets from being kids, there's sort of half of the sweet was purple colour and the other half was creamy colour. Same thing's true of these if you split them down. So the heartwood on these tends to be purple, and the sapwood on the outside tends to be white. So for carving, if you did something like a bowl or a spoon or a spatula, if you split it down carefully, you can end up with a two-coloured item. So it can look really attractive. They also produce a fruit, so they produce cherries. They're not as sweet as the cultivated varieties that you're going to get in the shop, nor are they as big. They tend to come out about June-ish, so it's quite an early fruiting tree. You have to be really quick though, because, well, for one thing, they're right up there. But the other thing, the birds are on them often before they ripen up. So it's not often that we get to eat any of the wild cherries. Now and again. I'm stood next to a mature ash. So ash, when they're young, the bark is generally very smooth. As they get older, it starts to develop this sort of fissuring going on it, and by the time you're looking at a mature specimen, it's got these very deep fissures in the bark. To my eye, these fissures make up little diamond shapes, that kind of thing. So again, even from a distance, you can look at that bark and be able to tell what it is. This is one of my favourite. It's probably my second favourite tree in the woods. I have a very deep affinity towards it. In terms of how old it is it? Well, we can estimate how old a tree is, and it is only an estimate. But if you measure the circumference at chest height, which is kind of handy, that's where your arms are more or less at that height, and do it in inches, you can kind of just about guess. So I'm just going to use my arms to measure, because I'm going to tape measure. So my arms are around the tree there with about an 18-inch gap. Now I'm 6'2", so 6'12", 72, 74, 84, plus the odd 84, 92. So 92 inches, I hope. In a woodland like this, it's going to take about 2 years to put on an inch of diameter. So this one at 92 inches, it's probably taken about 180 years to get to this size. It's only more or less, but it does give us an indication. So 180 or so, this tree. Think about the things that this tree has lived through, 180 years. I'm really hoping that this one doesn't succumb to ash dieback, but yeah, time will tell. And as we're here, might as well take the opportunity and collect up a few more ramsons. Well, Nicola is, Willow's just having a little look around. But I'm in a big patch now of rosebay willowherb. So these things, this is last year's. Down here next to me, this is this year's rosebay. So down here, they will end up, yeah, well, probably a little taller than that one. They end up about 6 foot tall. Really common. They grow in woodlands. They'll grow on the hedgerow. They'll grow on waste ground. In fact, they have another of their common names is fireweed. So if there's a forest fire, that kind of thing, they'll spring up. And I'm led to believe that the bomb sites in London after the Blitz, the following spring, the rosebay started to grow. It gives us a downy flower head, kind of Augustish time, that we can use. It makes a fantastic tinder. While the plants are at this stage, they are edible. So these little tips, so just sort of this bit on the end, we can pick that and eat it. To be fair, it just tastes a bit leafy, but they are perfectly edible. You can also have this as an infusion, as a tea, and if you take it that way, it's good for upset stomachs, and I can vouch for it. I was out here a few years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years back, and we had a weekend course, and then I think I was busy doing a one-to-one, and then it went sort of into a 5-day course, so I ended up doing a sort of 8-9 day stint, and I had a bit of an upset stomach, and I drank this for a day, and it cleared it up. So rosebay willowherb. When you're out doing tree identification, at any time actually, but especially in those early days, you can sometimes confuse yourself a little bit. But so it's important to to sort of trace back branches to where they come from. And the reason I mention it stood in this particular spot is because we've got a right hodgepodge going on here. So we've got elder, we've got hazel, and we've got wayfaring tree, all coming together in this same spot. The hazel actually that's kind of gone over that way, probably about 4 meters away. So it's kind of just come right over the top there. The hazel, fairly distinct. You're not going to have confused it for either the elder or the wayfaring tree. But these two, you can see we've got this, so there's an elder flower developing just here, and we've also got the wayfaring tree flowers out. So elder, the flowers on those edible, not just yet. In fact, I'm really surprised to see these even starting to come out quite this early. I normally expect to see elderflower sort of mid-May, so this is a good 6 weeks early in my experience. But yeah, give this a bit longer. Those flowers are going to end up about that big. So it's not one flower, it's a cluster, an umbel of very many flowers. You can pick those straight off the tree and eat them. In Food for Free, Richard maybe describes them as tasting like American cream soda. I don't get that at all, but I do like elderflower. I like them as a donut, an elderflower donut. So basically mix up a little tempura batter, dip them in, quick fry, bit of ice and sugar on the top. Elderflower cordial, elderflower champagne, elderflower panna cotta, that's an absolute winner, as is elderflower delight. So a bit like Turkish delight, but instead of using rose, you use the elderflower. And then, yeah, as I said, this is wayfaring tree. It's a native tree, probably not one of the more commonly known of our native trees. I think it's a fantastic little tree. These, I don't know if you can see that, we'll maybe go for a close-up afterwards if you can't. When they're in this stage, it always reminds me of like a Viking helmet. So the thing with the sort of the horn stick, and I know that they didn't really have helmets with horns sticking out, but nonetheless, that's what these very much remind me of. They do produce a berry, and there is at least some evidence that they've been eaten in times of famine, but I think you would have to be pretty hungry to want to eat them, because they give you really bad stomach cramps at the same time. So as I say, we've got elder, we've got hazel, and we've got wayfaring tree, all in this all kind of in this same little spot where they've all gathered to grab the light. So we're on the woodland edge at the moment, and there are more plants here than you can shake a stick at, basically. So just in this little area we've got wild strawberry, we've got ground ivy, violets. Just here we've got bugle, dog's mercury. So there's a wide range of things growing just in this one little spot. So I just take a little look at one of them. So down here, this is ground ivy. It's a member of the mint family, so it's got that square stem. It's also known as ale hoof. So the leaf is kind of vaguely hoof shaped. The ale part of that name comes from the fact that this used to be used to clarify and flavour beer before hops were used for that purpose. The leaf is edible, you can eat it raw. It's quite fragrant. I'm not that keen on it raw, to be fair. It has a slight downy underside on the leaf. So what I prefer to do with this is to just chop it up really finely, mix it in with a little bit of natural yogurt, and use it as a dip, as a writer. It works really well that way. Or you could use it as an infusion, so a couple of sprigs like this into some hot water, and it is a good decongestant. So if you're feeling a little bit blocked up, then ground ivy tea is going to be the plant to head to. So I am, in fact, very, very happy indeed to have found these, because this is my absolute favourite springtime plant. So this is cuckoo flower, also known as lady smock. Yeah, it's delicious. So we've got the leaf that we could eat. So this bit, or in fact we could eat the flower as well. Ooh. It's kind of, think wasabi, that type of taste, with a slight diesel afterkick. The little afterkick is definitely a price worth paying for the flavour that you get in the first place. The leaves are pretty pokey, to be fair. The flowers are probably a little bit more subtle. As I say, it is my absolute favourite at this time of year. It's just a shame that it's not going to be around for long. Give this another few weeks, we won't be finding any of them again. You have a very brief window of opportunity as far as lady smock goes. So I'm going to make the most of it while they're about. So to tuck down here, and I'm not sure whether you're going to be able to see particularly well, but yeah, tuck down here under the brambles we have pig nuts. They look very much like a carrot, basically, because it is in that family. As I've mentioned previously, carrot family, a family that you need to be particularly cautious with. They've got some nice edibles in there. We've also got some very dangerous plants indeed. These aren't ready just yet, I don't think. We'll give those another few weeks, and then I'll come back and take another look at them. So basically the pig nuts, they put down a very thin stem, and you have to be really delicate as you dig the things out. So there's a very thin stem that then kicks off at a right angle, and so you have to kind of follow it along, and at the end of that is a little tuber, maybe about the size of the end of your little finger, that kind of thing. It's really easy to separate out the little stem from the tuber itself. It's important that you try to keep the thing attached, so that by doing that you know that the thing you've dug up is the thing that you think it is. So for instance, in amongst here we've got bluebells growing, so I could potentially pull out a bluebell bulb instead of my pig nut and consume that. So yeah, you need to make sure that the stem stays attached to that little tuber. As I say, I'll give it a couple of weeks and then come back and see how they're getting on. So as I said at the beginning of this video, guys, I appreciate that we are very lucky indeed, very privileged to be able to come out into the woods like this when the country's under essentially lockdown, and so hopefully if you are stuck in and you're not able to get out and explore green spaces, hopefully at least you find some benefit in our little videos. Our intention anyway is to pop up to the woods once a week, just to keep a little eye on things around the camp, see if there are any things that need to be, just looked at, mended, that sort of stuff. And as we're up here, we're going to try to put a video together and get those out to you. So if you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, then please do so, and that way you won't miss out on anything. Take care, stay safe.